Hello there. Welcome to Planet America. I'm John Barron.
And I'm Licciardello.
This week, is Trump's bully diplomacy with Ukraine working? His former National Security Advisor John Bolton says no. He'll join us shortly.
And the head-spinning tariff war has markets reeling, and the usually oh-so-very polite Canadians are talking tough. But first,
Ukraine has agreed to the terms of a 30-day interim ceasefire with Russia proposed by US negotiators in Saudi Arabia.
Today, we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation.
Ironically, by agreeing to a ceasefire, Ukraine regains military and intelligence assistance, suspended by the Americans just last week.
We'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope that they'll say yes, that they'll say yes to peace. The ball's now in their court.
Marco Rubio has already made it clear that Ukraine would have to make concessions over land that Russia had taken since 2014, although that is not part of this ceasefire agreement. Ukraine went into these talks after launching a massive drone attack on the Russian capital.
According to Russian state media, defense forces intercepted more than 300 drones fired at Russia, with 91 of them specifically targeting the Moscow region.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was also in Saudi Arabia for talks with the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, who gave him a noticeably warmer reception than Zelensky received recently at the White House. Meanwhile, despite calling Zelensky a dictator and blaming the Ukrainians for starting the war, President Trump denies that he's siding with Russia.
I think I've been very tough to Russia, tougher than anybody's ever been to Russia, if you think about it. First of all, we had the Russia hoax, which was a very bad thing, could have led to a war.
And that's not a one-off tangent either, Chaz. Trump continues to conflate this conflict with scandals from his first term.
that's true. Although, honestly, I reckon the Ukrainians don't care. They just would be delighted to get that intelligence sharing back. It's so important for them, particularly so they can take life-saving defensive measures during Russian attacks, such as, for instance, activating air defences, relocating critical assets, sounding air raid sirens and warning their civilians to seek shelter. I think it's no coincidence that Putin launched particularly heavy attacks on Ukraine when they didn't have intelligence sharing capabilities, and 22 people were killed as a result. Now, when asked about this, Trump had a strange response.
Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now. He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see, it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
So the guy doing all the attacking, he definitely wanted peace.
Right.
But the people that he was attacking, Trump's not so sure about them.
Okay.
The strange thing is we never seem to hear from Trump exactly what concessions this man of peace, Putin, is prepared to make in order to negotiate a ceasefire. You see, Putin has ruled out European troops being stationed on Ukrainian soil as part of any deal. He's also ruled out an international security guarantee without troops being stationed in Ukraine. He's also ruled out the Ukrainian army getting too big. He's also ruled out US or Europe continuing to provide Ukraine with weapons. He's also ruled out Zelensky remaining in power. All of those things have been ruled out by the person that Trump insists is the one who definitely wants peace.
It's almost like he is the aggressor.
Almost. Although, to be fair, Ukraine got a few shots off on them last night, just before the ceasefire offer. Anyway, the fact is, Ukrainians have a ceasefire on the table now, so let's see what Putin does, shall we?
We shall indeed. For more, we are joined by Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, who also served as the US Ambassador to the United Nations during the presidency of George W. Bush. Ambassador Bolton, welcome back to Planet America. It's been reinstated now, but in your view, was it even appropriate for the US to withhold military aid and intelligence support from Ukraine?
No, I think it was a big mistake. I think the policy that Trump has been pursuing has effectively almost changed from 180 degrees from supporting Ukraine to supporting Russia. And the cutting off of that valuable assistance was a real plus for Russia. Now, having put it back on really is just an indication that it's like a light switch. You can turn it off or on as Trump wants. I think the 30-day ceasefire, we'll see if the Russians accept it. I think it's a mistake for Ukraine. What Trump wants is a quick end to this conflict. He wants to put it behind him. Maybe he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. But once you get into a ceasefire that then depends on continued negotiations, it's very dangerous that could become a partition line and, in effect, the new boundary between Ukraine and Russia.
Ambassador, Russia is the one that's been doing most of the firing lately. So is this ceasefire just Ukraine calling their bluff, or is this genuine progress towards peace in your view?
Well, I think it could be, from Ukraine's point of view, they really don't have much of an option to agreeing with what the United States says it wants. After the debacle in the Oval Office, I think that Ukraine, it's apparently they have not signed the minerals deal, although I thought that might come out of this agreement. Maybe they'll announce it at a later date. But certainly there had to be some accommodation in the Ukrainian position, whether it was in their interest or not. They had to get a relationship with Trump back on track, and notwithstanding the difficulties it's going to cause them.
Ambassador Bolton, you talked about a 180-degree turnaround there. We've seen President Trump refer to Zelensky as a dictator and accuse him of starting this war. Does President Trump's sympathies towards Russia preclude him from being an effective mediator in this conflict?
Well, I think that Trump has said many times, and I think he truly believes, that if he has good relations personally with Vladimir Putin, and the U.S. has good relations with Russia, and he believes Vladimir Putin is his friend. And so, of course, you trust your friend and you want to be helpful to them. I don't think Vladimir Putin views the world that way. And I'm not saying personal relations have no impact on international affairs. They do, but not with the hard men of history like Putin or Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un. Putin knows exactly what he wants from Trump, and he thinks he's an easy mark. He thinks he's manipulable. He has manipulated him since the election. Whereas if Trump has felt if he has bad personal relations with a foreign leader, then U.S. relations with that country are not good. And he has never had a good relationship with Zelensky since the famous perfect phone call in 2019 that produced the first impeachment effort, because he essentially threatened to withhold security assistance from Ukraine that Congress had appropriated if they didn't come up with Hillary Clinton's computer server and other things that Trump thought were used against him in the 2016 election. I think that's really what's going on here.
So do you think it's just perceived friendship that's the reason why Trump seems so strangely generous towards Putin, or do you think there's something more to it?
Well, there are a lot of theories that he's a recruited Russian agent and things like that. That's all very interesting. If anybody has any evidence of it, let's see it. I mean, I know a number of former KGB agents have said he was recruited years and years ago. They may have their own reasons for doing that. It's not enough to base any kind of sensible reaction on it. I think the fact is that Trump said during the campaign that the war never would have happened if he had been president. He blames it on Biden. That's neither provable nor disprovable, but he wants the war behind him. He doesn't care, therefore, what the terms of the settlement are. He wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He thinks he deserves it. After all, Obama got one, didn't do anything to deserve it, which is actually not far from the truth. And so a lot of his behavior is consistent with a conspiracy theory, but there just isn't any evidence of it. If there is, believe me, no one would like to see it more than the people of the United States.
And ultimately, Ambassador, what is your expectation? Will Ukraine get some form of security guarantee, perhaps in return for giving up Crimea and parts of the east? Or will a minerals deal with the United States be as close as he gets to a guarantee?
I think the minerals deal may be it. I don't think the minerals deal makes much of a difference one way or the other. These materials that we're talking about are not being actively mined now. You'd have to have billions of dollars of investment. And history has proven that close economic relations don't necessarily act as a guarantee anyway. Trump has given so much away before the negotiations even start, conceding at the outset that the declared U.S. position for the full restoration of sovereignty and territorial integrity was no longer the U.S. position. Now, you might get to that in the course of negotiation, but when you give it up at the front end, that's just manna from heaven in the Kremlin. Trump has said no NATO membership. Trump has said no NATO security guarantees, and he's come pretty close to saying no U.S. security guarantees. I think it puts Ukraine in an almost untenable position.
Ambassador, it appears like Europe is finally moving towards becoming more self-sufficient defensively. Do you welcome that development? And if so, should Trump be given credit for that?
Well, I think that development, in part instigated by Trump, could destroy NATO. The reaction of too many Europeans to what Trump did and what he has said and done to Zelensky has been to say, well, we'll do everything through the European Union. We'll have a European Union pillar in NATO. I think that's the end of the alliance. What I want to see are strong nation states in Europe that have strong military capabilities. And if you put it through the European Union, basically that comes very close to giving Trump a permission slip to withdraw from NATO. He's going to say, look, if the Europeans want to do it on their own, that's fine. Let them do it.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for being with us on Planet America.
Well, thanks again for having me.
As an April 2nd deadline looms for US tariffs to come into effect, America's northern neighbour is getting a new Prime Minister this week. It's Mark Carney, the former Governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, overwhelmingly elected leader of the ruling Canadian Liberal Party with 86% of member votes. Carney, who has never held elected office, replaces Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister, at least until elections, which have to be held by October. Just at a time, of course, when Canada is bracing for the impact of a trade war. And Carney made it clear he's up for a tariff fight with Donald Trump, and he vowed to retain Canada's independence in the face of Trump's calls for them to become the 51st state.
America is not Canada. And Canada never, ever will be part of America in any way, shape, or form.
And Canadians agree with Carney. A new poll showing just 9% want Canada to become the 51st state of America, while 85% do not. Although, worth noting, 18% of Conservative Party supporters want Canada to join America. Carney is already trying to tie the populist Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, to the American president.
Donald Trump is trying to weaken our economy. But there's someone else who, if he succeeds, will weaken our economy. It's Pierre Poilievre.
And Trump looms very large over Canadian politics right now, Chaz. And Poilievre clearly doesn't like it when he keeps getting questions like this classic.
A lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but...
Like who?
I don't know who, but...
Well, you're the one who asked the question, so
yeah.
You must know somebody.
And more recently, Poilievre has been kind of changing his tone on Trump too.
My message to the president is this. Knock it off. Stop the chaos. You are hurting your workers, your consumers, and most immediately, destroying trillions of dollars of wealth on your own stock market.
A poll last month found that Poilievre only narrowly leads Carney when Canadians are asked who would be tougher negotiating with Trump. 28 to 23, the divide there. Poilievre also suffers from his past statements in support of Trump because 31% of Canadians think he would yield to Trump, compared to just 6% who say the same about Carney. Even though Poilievre has modelled himself on Trump, Trump himself now is not so convinced he's on side. Either that or he's trying to help him out. It's really hard to tell.
Well, I think his biggest problem is he's not a MAGA guy, you know? I mean, he's really not. He's not a Trump guy at all. I don't like what he's saying about me. It's just not positive about me.
Yeah, I can believe he's not sucking up to Trump enough. The Canadians are definitely angry, John. As I noted on Friday, pollster Liga found 27% of Canadians view the US as an enemy nation. And they're running ads like this.
Are we perfect? No, but we are not the 51st anything. We are the first to unite in a crisis, the first to build bridges, not walls, and the first to stand on guard for thee. My name is Jeff, and we are Canadian.
It takes a lot to make Canadians nationalistic, but Trump and his team are giving it a red-hot go.
He feels strongly that it would be very beneficial for the Canadian people to be the 51st state of the United States. They wouldn't be paying for these tariffs. They'd have much lower taxes if they were part of our great country.
Now, I know that seems like a fun lark. Caroline Levitt was clearly being humorous there, but the New York Times has revealed that Trump isn't kidding around. He's reportedly told Trudeau that he doesn't believe the treaty marking the border between the two countries is valid. And Trump's Commerce Secretary also reckons Trump wants to eject Canada from the Five Eyes intelligence sharing group. He wants to tear up the treaty governing the Great Lakes, and he wants to review military cooperation between the two countries. So you can see why Canada would be taking this personally. Meanwhile, these threatened tariffs against Canada are based on a blatant falsehood.
This is about fentanyl and what we can do to stop the cartels from partnering with Chinese officials, laundering money, and bringing a poison into our country that is specifically designed to kill the next generation.
Come on, this spin is incredibly unconvincing.
So there's been more than a 2,000% increase in illegal fentanyl seizure at the northern border. Why? Because Canada is allowing that fentanyl to come to the United States.
It's just 43 pounds that were found last year. That's less than a carry-on suitcase. Is that a lot of fentanyl compared to, say, Mexico, where the vast majority of the fentanyl is brought in through Mexico, not Canada? So what else does Canada need to do?
Well, I just told you, last year alone, there was a 2,000% increase in illegal fentanyl. You're asking me for what the president's justification is for these tariffs. It's not up to you. You're not the president, Gabe. And frankly, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the families in this country who have lost loved ones at the hands of this deadly poison.
Yeah, especially given if you actually look at monthly fentanyl deaths in America, they're considerably less than half what they were a year ago. Oh, by the way, you notice that graph ends at September 2024. You see, September figures are the most recent fentanyl overdose numbers because real-time national data on fentanyl overdose deaths doesn't exist. So it's impossible to know whether Canada has adequately addressed the situation since February, like the administration supposedly wants them to. At least they can't know whether they have or not for another 6 months. He's got pretext written all over it, which makes it impossible to know what Trump's going to do next with these tariffs. So on Tuesday morning, for instance, Trump might increase the steel tariffs on Canada to 50%. And then on Tuesday afternoon, for instance, he might change his mind. And the result of that kind of manoeuvring is a lot of uncertainty. According to one uncertainty index, there's currently even more economic uncertainty than after 9/11. It's second only to the early pandemic. Even Trump yes woman Fox's Maria Bartiromo is getting concerned about the lack of clarity.
But I think CEOs want to see predictability. They say, look, I have to speak with shareholders. I've got to make plans for CapEx spending. I can't if it's 20% one day and then it's off for a month and it's 25%.
Yeah.
So can you give us a sense of whether or not we are going to get clarity for the business community?
Well, I think so. But, you know, the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up. And, you know, I don't know if it's predictability. I think
so that's not clarity.
No, it's not clarity. And as the economic volatility pushes America towards at least speculation about a recession, Trump allies' messaging isn't getting any better.
I cannot get over the chutzpah of these business leaders sitting there whining about their quarterly reports while President Trump teaches them how to build an economy based on love of country and love of your neighbor. We should be listening and watching and saying thank you rather than whining and moaning.
I'm not sure that's a winning message there, John. Or here.
Not looking at the stock market with Donald Trump.
Now we've got tariffs and the market has been going down.
You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at the stock market, look at the stock market, you look at the stock market, look at the stock market. I mean, look at the stock market. You look at the stock market. 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 The stock market is surged. The stock market has set records. The biggest gain of stock market after an election in history.
Not looking at the stock market anymore with Donald Trump.
Fair to say it hasn't been a great week for Trump's special government employee Elon Musk. And I don't just mean this.
A setback for SpaceX's mission to send astronauts to the moon. But just minutes into the mission, the unmanned rocket ship beginning to spin out of control.
There's all these pieces of it.
The breakup of the ship illuminating the sky from Florida to the Caribbean.
And I don't mean this either.
Reports European sales of Tesla vehicles fell 45% in the month of January. Tesla also saw sales declines in California. That's its largest United States market.
Nope, I mean this.
Musk and Secretary of State Marco Rubio clashing. Musk accusing Rubio of not firing anyone in the State Department. The president eventually had to interrupt and ended up praising both.
Seems weeks of simmering tensions between Musk and several cabinet secretaries reportedly boiled over, including Marco Rubio, who, according to the New York Times, had been privately furious with Musk for weeks for shutting down the USAID agency supposedly under Rubio's control. When Rubio laid out his own plans to cut staff, quote, Musk was unimpressed. He told Rubio that he was, quote, good on TV, with the clear subtext that Marco wasn't much good at very much else. Although President Trump denied that a clash had taken place.
And they're both great guys. And by the way, they both get along fantastically well. Marco has done unbelievably as Secretary of State. And Elon is a very unique guy who's done a fantastic job.
Do you think he needs to be reined in, Mr.
enough.
President?
Enough.
Yeah. He wanted to talk about the FIFA announcement. That's why the big trophy was there. The Times reported the cabinet meeting yielded the first significant indication that Trump is willing to put some limits on Musk. Trump says that while he wants the cabinet secretaries to decide which federal employees they want to keep and which to fire, if they don't fire enough people, he'll give that job back to Elon Musk.
I want them to do the best job they can. When we have good people, that's precious. That's very important. And we want them to keep the good people. And so we're going to be watching them, and Elon and the group are going to be watching them. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
Yeah, look, I'm not surprised there's been tension between Musk and Rubio, John, because it was only just reported last week that after Rubio had decreed that certain critical programs, such as those fighting HIV in Africa, for example, would continue to be funded, Doge went ahead behind his back and vetoed the payments for those programs anyway, off their own bat. And that was no accident. They had to manually check boxes in the payment system, one at a time, to do that. Now that is just a mutiny. And the issues weren't just from Rubio either. Apparently Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy wasn't thrilled with the Doge team either when they tried to lay off air traffic controllers at the same time that there were multiple plane crashes going on in America, especially given those crashes were being attributed to an air traffic controller shortage. Having said all that, I would be a little bit careful about this New York Times story. And the reason for that is it seems to me to have been likely strategically leaked out by Trump. Why do I say that? Firstly, it's by Habman and Swan, who are two reporters Trump does like leaking through generally. Secondly, Trump hasn't attacked them on Truth Social like he usually does when a story breaks that he doesn't like. Thirdly, it seemed to fit in perfectly with Trump's communication strategy that particular day. He wrote how as the secretaries learn about and understand the people working for the various departments, they can be very precise as to who will remain and who will go. We say the scalpel rather than the hatchet. So that news story there happened to match his narrative of the day perfectly. Handy, isn't it? And finally, it was pretty important for Trump to get that message out precisely, that Musk is not in charge of making sacking decisions, because his lawyers have spent the last few weeks in court promising Musk isn't in charge of Doge or any decisions about sacking. But then at Trump's speech to Congress, he foolishly said this.
And I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, Doge. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight.
Your Honour, I present Exhibit A.
Whoopsie.
That statement was immediately submitted to court as evidence, and then all of a sudden we have this amazing coincidental news story leaking out that Musk isn't actually in charge of anything, which was extremely convenient for Trump. So I'm a bit sus about this one. By the way, you're not kidding about Musk having a tough time of it recently, though. The guy's net worth is down $156 billion since December and falling. Easy come, easy go, I guess, John.
Yeah, he could use some USAID. It wasn't all bad news for Elon Musk this week, though. He got a big PR plug and a possible attempt to try and boost his flagging car sales from President Trump, making a very large show of buying a new Tesla.
This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Wow, indeed. And what a lovely gesture indeed, because presidents are not allowed to drive for security reasons, but he bought a new car anyway. Fox News host Sean Hannity also got the please help Elon memo, tweeting that he just ordered his new self-driving Tesla. It has been more than 4 years now since a mob of pro-Trump protesters stormed the US Capitol building, many of them inspired not just by Donald Trump's calls to be there, but by the QAnon conspiracy theory. Yes, remember that? So is QAnon still a thing? Let's ask Melina Wicks.
Remember QAnon? The conspiracy theory from 2017 that says Trump is waging a secret battle against a cabal of deep state Democrat Satan-worshipping pedophiles, as revealed by an anonymous online poster called Q? What happened to those guys? When Trump lost the 2020 election, QAnon followers took it hard.
The single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon Shaman. Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th.
And also the horns and fur of January 6th. But when Trump ultimately did fail to retake the White House, the Q crowd went quiet. Partly out of disappointment, and partly out of being kicked off most major tech platforms. The mysterious Q, thought to be a decidedly less mysterious 8chan moderator, also stopped posting in 2022. Back in his first term, Trump was playing coy about the movement.
I don't know really anything about it other than they do supposedly like me.
But since launching his own social media platform, Trump has increasingly courted the group, amplifying QAnon accounts nearly 1,000 times on Truth Social. And Kash Patel, his new FBI director, and a board member of Truth Social's parent company, made no secret of his desire to recruit QAnon believers to the site.
You got to harness that following that Q has garnered and just sort of tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. Harness all that apocalyptic energy about saving the world from cannibalistic celebrities and just tweak it a little bit. Truth Social isn't the only platform letting QAnon followers back in the tent. After taking over Twitter, Elon Musk restored many of the formerly banned QAnon promoting accounts. And QAnon posts have surged as a result. QAnon beliefs are still considered too out there for mainstream Republicans. But conspiracies about the deep state have become a pretty mainstream part of the Republican movement, like the 2/3 of Republican voters who believe the 2020 election was stolen. Kash Patel even wrote a children's book about it. It's a natural pairing. kids' books are full of suspicious stuff. Like, where exactly is Spot? And what does he really get up to all those times he disappears? QAnon is not what it used to be. And the days of big crowds dissecting thousands of cryptic messages for signs of a coming storm are likely over. But one thing remains true.
They do supposedly like me.
And that's all for this week's Planet America. We'll see you at the same time next week and anytime from 9 p.m. on ABC iView, YouTube and Facebook.
And we'll see you on ABC News for Planet America's Weekend Edition on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, also on iView and online. See you there.